what makes you tick live? Lessons learned.
Oh, I like it. The journeys, the lessons, the bets, the things that have happened along the way.
When I started this, I did not work in sales, right? So I was just a data person and talking to all these amazing people and learning lots, but I didn't really have anywhere to actually apply it.
We've had a few ridiculous guests on, right? Scott Leese, Rachit Kataria.
One of the things I love about Rich Patterson is that he used to knock doors. He used to go in person to just turn up at offices.
So what's the hardest thing in the world to do right now in startups? Raise capital, right? Everyone talks about how hard it is. They've just raised, token security, 20 million Series A funding. So we got Ido onto the podcast, like literally within like the month of them going and getting this funding.
Traditionally, sales is a very male-dominated thing, and the women that we've had on our podcast are super successful. So for you to be successful in that, like, you have to be an absolute badass.
She's built this amazing startup. She's also built a fractional community. She helped other people become fractionals. So Chris, he's incredible. He's got like this level of discipline, but he's still like very frontline leader.
Stephen is so interesting because one of the things I took from him was that he said about one of the ways he connects with people is this like big brother, little brother relationship. I was speaking to him for like 15 minutes and I felt like he was my big brother.
So I learned so much from Jacob, and I'm really happy that he's become a friend of the pod. So we did our Christmas special. We've done our sort of catch up now on the lessons that we've learned. What are you most excited about for the rest of 2025 for the pod?
That's a very interesting question.
Tolu.
Richard.
Welcome to, this is our second studio version of What Makes You Tick Live.
Yes, it is.
What should we talk about?
Well, I think we're going to go with a bit of alliteration. So what makes you tick live? Lessons learned.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
It ties into the vision, right?
Exactly.
The journeys, the lessons, the bets, the things that have happened along the way. We're learning.
We are learning a lot.
I feel like it's a bit of a cheat code, right?
So do you know what is really funny and a bit ironic for me is that when I started this, I did not work in sales, right? So I was just a data person and talking to all these amazing people and learning lots, but I didn't really have anywhere to actually apply it, right? But now I'm actually like working in sales and it's just the wildest thing.
Give me an example. So talk to me about how you've actually gone and taken something that you're learning from a guest into your working life.
So I think, for example, Gal, right? Some of the stuff that he posts and some of the stuff that he talked about in our episode really resonated with some of the things I see in my day-to-day job, right? So did you see his post, I think it was yesterday or the other day, about the mistakes that AEs make?
Yeah.
And I just read it going, okay.
Is it like you're reading it going, this is me?
Some of that stuff I was like, didn't know that. That's something that I could have very easily done when I got into the moment because I didn't know. So yeah, lots of really, really interesting things that are coming through.
Yeah, I think you could, just Gal on his own is a masterclass in content. I wish we'd asked him some more questions. We're going to have to get him, you're going to have to get him back on. But I've not really seen anyone nailing LinkedIn as much. All you see is people talking about how the algorithm's so difficult and how reach is down. And when we spoke with Scott Leese the other day, he was saying that his impressions had gone down by something like 60%, but the engagement was still around the same. But he talked about the value of impressions and the eyeballs really do matter. But Gal's posts are doing ridiculously well. And he says he's got a framework, which he's taught Meredith. But the thought that he puts into like each post, and that's what made us want to get him onto the podcast in the first place, right? Is that he'd spoken about hiring for the unteachables. And then he talks about moving up market. And we did a whole podcast. If you've not listened to it, you need to listen to it because it's just absolutely world class. But there's like so much experience in it. And when I'm thinking about my own posts, it's a bit of a journey you go on, like with this podcast. You go, we want to do this thing, but we don't really know what on earth we're doing. So you just start. And then you get into a bit of a cycle of doing things without really necessarily measuring the results or the impact. And then over time you go, I don't really like what I'm doing anymore. Or you get a bit bored of it. Or you're not getting the kind of conversations that you want to have off the back of it. When I look at Gal's posts, it's not just like one level above or two levels above. It's like when we spoke to Jacob and he was talking about Chris Voss and his communication is so many levels above in terms of the way that most people treat LinkedIn. I think it's just an absolute masterclass. I'm so glad that we got someone of like that level of thinking and intelligence and ability to come on and like give us a bit of the inside source behind the posts.
Because I think what I love about all of our guests is the value that they bring. There's so much value in every single one of them, but in so many different ways. And I feel like when I look at Gal's posts, it's like a very rich meal, if that makes sense. It's just like so much. I'm trying to comment. I'm like, I don't even know where to start because there's like 50 things I could comment about because it's so full of value.
Yeah. Absolutely love it. So since we did the last one, which was like our Christmas special, first ever studio, we've had a few ridiculous guests on, right? And there was a moment that prompted me to go like, we have to go and do another studio one. Apart from the fact that I just really loved it and I really enjoyed it. Was James Bissell, podcast alumni, one of my very favorite people who I speak to most days. He wrote a comment on one of our posts, which was, you're basically creating a leadership enablement program. And I was like, I've never thought about a podcast in that way. It was about like sharing entrepreneurial journeys, but I guess it is, right? We're basically giving people leadership enablement.
It's the playbook.
What do you think about it?
Well, I think firstly, I love James, and his content is also another thing where I'm just sat there going like, this is so full of value. So massive shout out to James. And yeah, love the way he thinks about things is so special, because even how, you know, he's got the revenue enabler, he's got the sales university. It's like, I never thought of it like people don't go to sales university. Do you know what I mean? There's a really good way that he thinks about things. And I think that the sales leadership enabler is such an important thing, actually, because even if we think back to when we started, we wanted to have people talk about, this is how I grew as a leader. These were some of the things I had to learn. So it actually just makes so much sense.
It makes perfect sense. And yeah, James's content, another one to follow. Like, I've got the relationship luckily with James. I can ask him about like what he does and his psychology. And it's literally about, he goes, I think that like I am the sales VP and like I'm doing a coaching session. So I want to throw like one idea, get it really across to people, give them very practical applications, and I'm talking to them like they were in my team.
Yes.
And I'm going, that's how I feel when I read it.
Literally, that's how I feel when I watch his videos, when I read his posts, I feel like he's my boss.
Yeah, exactly. And he goes viral all the time.
Yeah.
So he's grown from like 6,000 followers to like 30,000 followers in 18 months.
That's amazing.
Which is pretty epic.
Very well deserved.
Well deserved. And it is a masterclass of like, here's exactly how you can do it. But he does this really cool stuff. You know, like there's like people give hate to this thing on LinkedIn, which I think is really clever and I like it, but people give it hate. So let's talk about it, which is, you know, like someone says, comment scorecard to get the scorecard.
Yeah.
I'm going, you don't understand LinkedIn if you think that that's a bad idea, because you can't put external links in posts. So what James does is he's got this way of writing a post, and he's like, you know, here's like my opener that booked our sales team 60 demos.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Like in the first month. And then, you know, comment, whatever, playbook. And he has like 600 comments.
Do you know what it is, right? Is that some people say, look, just put the thing in the comments itself. But I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And people are always going to moan. That's the thing on anything, people are always going to moan. So I think James is doing great things. So don't worry about the haters. Do you know what I'm saying? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and throw out a name that we've spoken to, a guest that we've had since we last did the live, and tell me what you learned from that guest.
Okay. Can I Google it?
Can you Google? No, you can't have ChatGPT up on the side. No, you can't.
Quick side note, when I'm doing interviews now with candidates, I can see all the time now, people have their phone up or their second screen and they read from ChatGPT when they're speaking to me.
It's actually shocking.
So I won't do that for you today.
I am going to have my phone though, to just make sure I get the names right, but it's not ChatGPT. It's a no, I promise. It's a no, I promise. So the first one that we did, I'll try and do these in some kind of order as well. The first one that we did after that live was Jacob Warwick. So Jacob Warwick.
You mean our number one podcast guest of all time?
Is he actually?
Yeah.
Is that by views?
He had a goal, right? He said it on the podcast. He said, I want to make this podcast the number one podcast you've ever done. And then did a whole bit about how the psychology of that is so clever. And it is. It's had like almost 3 times the amount of views of our second best performing episode. And to be fair, I send it to everyone
Yeah.
because it's so good. And so many people come and ask us about like how to go and get help with their job search, executives. So I always say, oh, listen to this episode. But what did you want to know about Jacob? I'll do my best.
Just what did you learn from it?
What didn't I learn from it?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, that one episode. I think one thing I learned is the level of psychology that he's playing at.
Yeah, it's different.
It's different. There's very few people that I speak with who I'm just going, your brain is just working at a completely different level. One of my favorite other podcasts is F1 Nation. I'm like a big F1 fan. And they always talk about Max Verstappen has spare capacity. So as he's going around 250 miles an hour, he's watching the screens so he can see someone pitting, or he can see like someone's gone off the track before the safety car come on. And he's using that information all the time. And I'm going, Jacob, I think he's having the conversation with you, but he's just got all this spare capacity running in the background. But the other thing I learned is that he not only is thinking about things in a completely different way, loves to tell you that he has a contrarian take, but it's not contrarian take to be contrarian. It's because he sees the world, I think, like as it is. And then he gives you a very practical example. So everyone I've sent that to, and then when I wrote an article off the back of it, is I'm going, here's the exact words that you can use when you're lining up your next stage in your interview process, or how to think about yourself as a product in a job search, or how you can choose rather than being chosen, how you can be a leader within the process rather than being a passenger and like wanting to go and get the next step. And he's not a sales guy. So like he's a marketer and he says that he doesn't even like marketing that much. So I think he's just funny. But I'm going, how are you that good at sales? How are you that good at sales?
Yeah. Jacob is special. Like, it's just, every time I chat with him, there's something different where I'm just like, you just think about things so differently. And yeah, it's amazing. And even the outcomes that he gets and the impact that he has. Yeah, it's just, yeah.
In the trailer that Sarah made, so again, shout out to Sarah, our amazing editor, which, by the way, if you've seen like our new like podcast since the live one and you've gone, oh, they seem to have like
leveled up
a little bit. A lot of that's because of Sarah, which you introduced me to. So thank you very much for that. And in that trailer, it literally hits you with like those big numbers. Like, we made 440,000 in a 2-minute pushback. And you're like, what? It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, so I learned so much from Jacob. And I'm really happy that he's become a friend of the pod. You've spoken to him a couple of times. He's doing loads more content because of the back of your conversation. He's also got an amazing right-hand person in his business called Chelsea Langan. I don't think you've met yet, but you've got to meet Chelsea. She's a force of nature. She's been helping me with like the multiplier scorecard and giving me amazing feedback. Both of them two are ridiculous. So they're like immediately gone into our challenge network, giving us advice around how they can go and like how we can go and take new products to market and how we can think about our own business. And we've done additional podcasts with Jacob. So there's lots more to come from Jacob.
Okay. So what about Bair?
Chris.
Yeah.
So another Meredith intro.
Shout out to Meredith, actually. Meredith's just smashing it.
So Chris, he's incredible, right? So I remember I had a pre-chat with him and we were talking about all sorts of things, but we were talking about running. And this guy's like an absolutely like relentless trail runner. So he's got like this level of discipline, but he's still like very frontline leader. So everything he was talking about, when people hear this episode, it's like a masterclass in how to lead a startup sales team. And he was Meredith's sales manager.
Was he actually?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So he obviously hires, right?
Yeah, very good at hiring.
So the way he talks about hiring, coaching reps, what it takes to go and close big deals. He talked to us, didn't he, since we released the episode about like a massive deal that they've just done as a business. So he's still doing it. And I think I love the operators. It's not like I'm ivory tower leader. Here's how it should be. It's like, this is the practical reality of how we go and run a startup sales team today.
And he's just so resilient. So that resilience is the thing that I got from Chris. Yeah. Discipline and resilience. Those are the two things that stuck in my mind from the conversation with him and really challenged me.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Again, I think it's an absolute masterclass and just such a down-to-earth guy.
Yeah.
Very successful, very down-to-earth, a real leadership masterclass in sales.
I think the point about Meredith probably leads us on to our next two guests, right? So I like to still deal with them a little bit separately, but though these two for me embody even like what Meredith does. So you probably know who these are, right? So it's Rich Patterson and Stephen Oommen.
Honestly, I would just say I can't even thank both of these two gentlemen enough. They've really helped us massively just because of who they are, how they are. They're not like in this world to try and like build their own kingdoms. They're literally just like giving.
Yeah.
So Stephen's connected us with like so many people, like Scott Leese, Rachit Kataria, like the amount of intros that he's made. I'm going to do a podcast with a very special guest I can't even tell you about this week. It's ridiculous. It's another like real heavy hitter. And then just so many introductions. Like he's made introductions to his mentors that I've had about 10 conversations off the back of it. Beast around Go to Network. Absolutely love. So let's talk about Stephen first, because I think Rich Patterson deserves his own little.
I think he does, especially because the way we got introduced to Stephen Oommen was because Rich Patterson just atted me and Stephen in a thing. And I was like, you guys should connect. Like literally that's how it happened. So yeah, I think Stephen is so interesting because, you know, he's writing a book, right? So I think his book resonates so many ways with me in terms of, yeah, when you see the book, you'll understand. But I think that one of the things I took from him was that he said about one of the ways he connects with people is this like big brother, little brother relationship, right? So he's like, you know, if I'm the older person, I'm the big brother and I'll take you out to dinner when you come to my area. If you're the little brother, then, and I was just like, it's so interesting because I was speaking to him for like 15 minutes and I felt like he was my big brother. Do you know what I mean? He's just so good at authentically connecting with people, because I think sometimes when you hear something like that, it sounds like a bit of a tactic. Do you know what I mean? It sounds like this is how I manipulate people, but it's actually not, because it's genuinely like what it feels like in a really, really nice way, you know? And so I just learned so much from him in terms of the importance of your network, building that out, making connections, doing the stuff, and just how to genuinely connect with people and care, you know? Really fascinating.
I agree. He's just one of the most fascinating people. I think that in the same way we were talking about like Gal and Jacob thinking on a completely different level, Stephen thinks in a completely different level around people, and he's just incredible. Like his book around the chameleon effect is going to be absolutely phenomenal. But I can't thank him enough. Like genuinely, I know he knows that we feel this way, but he's just so nice. And to have someone like that's thinking about you, who's built all these wonderful relationships with people, and everyone loves Stephen. So when Stephen says to Scott Leese, "Hey Scott, you should speak to Richard," and then he says like a lovely line about he's got one of the, you know, the nicest or highest quality production podcasts I've ever seen, and I'm going, we're a tiny little like recruitment business, and we've got like a podcast that gets like put into that bracket. And he's just so giving. Literally, just before we turned up today, as we were driving here, I got another intro from Stephen talking about the fact that we've just like written this multiplier scorecard to go and help startups hire leaders. And I'm going, honestly, it's just to have someone thinking about you like that, absolute legend.
Rich Patterson.
Yeah.
How did you connect with Rich?
I found him on LinkedIn. I saw him on another podcast, and it was just like him wearing a hat.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, and I'm going, and he was talking about something to do with Go to Network, and I was like, this guy looks completely different from most sales leaders. He's very much himself. It was so natural. And then I just checked out some of his other posts that he'd done, and I'm going, oh my God, I need to know this person. I'm like, Tolu, we need to get this guy onto the podcast. It took us a little while to get him on.
Part of that was also my fault, because we actually did a recording, and I don't have tech issues very often. I've had them probably 3 times. You were there for one of them, and it was the worst. And he was another one of them. It was just so bad. And then getting back in was, he was so gracious. So gracious.
Got him back on, and I'm so glad that we did, because like if you look at like a sort of map of Rich Patterson and then what that's become, it's just absolutely world class.
Crazy. One of the things I love about Rich Patterson is that he used to knock doors. He used to go in person to just turn up at offices. And that is something that my mind can't quite fathom having to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've never had to do door-to-door sales like that, but he's lived that life, and he brings that stuff into what he does now. And yeah.
And he's a lifelong learner too. So he's again, what I love about that, we talked about this in the last episode, but these people all have massive growth mindset. So they're both part of the Leese 100, which is Scott's like community. And you can see it, like all the people. I'd love to know that all the other like 97 in that group, because they're just all incredible people. But yeah, Rich Patterson's an absolute legend. We definitely like have to, there's like people that you meet that you really get on with, you connect with. We've got our podcast alumni. There's a group of those people, and to be fair, it's quite a lot of them. But I'm going, I have to like meet these people in real life. So there's definitely going to be one of these episodes in the future where we're on tour and we're going to go and hit the US by storm and meet some of these people just for real life.
Because I just feel like I know them so much, but it's like I've never actually met you in person. Like, yeah.
Well, we hadn't met, had we, for ages.
Very true. This is probably like the 5th time we met in person, like ever. In the States, something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, we just meet like for steak and to do some podcasts.
What more could you want?
Dream relationship.
Goals. I know I said I was going to go in order, but I'm not. So I think Scott Leese is a natural progression from that one.
So Rich Patterson and Stephen both know Scott very well, part of the Leese 100. And Rich Patterson asked me the other day after he watched the Scott episode, he goes, why do you think Scott's so successful? And I think he's defining success by the fact that Scott's been in this game for like 13 years as a like doing his own thing, and then had like lots of wonderful sales careers before that, and he's got 118,000 followers and all these wonderful things, but he's the authority in the 0 to 25 million SaaS startup space. Why? And I said, I think it's because he's just so himself. There's absolutely no shred that he gives up about what people think. It's just, I am me. I like a funny little anecdote. He was on stage the other day and he's got like an I love weed CA on his hat. And I'm like, you're in front of a conference and you're wearing that hat. That just shows you, right? Like, I'm myself on purpose. I'm like, fair play. So, and then he has these opinions and views, which he's shaped through his career, which no one else really talks about. But when he tells you about it, you're going, oh my God, I totally understand.
Give me an example.
So I'll give you an example around, he talks very quite candidly, even though he's a startup, like fractional CRO and consultant. He talks about how a lot of people are leaving the corporate world and the employed world to go and start their own thing. So I think a lot of people who are in that position, they're like, we want to make sure we don't talk about that stuff too much, about people building outside of the business, building their dreams. But he talks about it as like, this is a really great thing, and you got to be aware of it. So he's not trying to hide the reality of what's going on in the world. He talks really candidly. What I love about the podcast episode is that he talks about his origin story and about how he had that moment when he decided to go and do his own thing. And it was, I saw myself in the story, which is, it was this moment of just like, he couldn't go to his like kids' baseball game. That would he immediately leave the office at 4:30 in the afternoon, and he got loads of grief from his CEO, who was like 10 years younger and didn't understand what it was like to have kids. And I told him about how I'd had a moment where I was like sick by Lake Garda because I was like, my sales forecast had slipped, and my CEO told me I had to go and reforecast, and I was like, and we just talked about how like sales forecasts are mostly bullshit. And like, if that's the most important thing in the world, you're not treating the person in the right way. So there's just lots of reality and like lived experience in the way that he talks. It's not sales tactics. He deliberately didn't want to talk about like AI in sales, which everyone wants to talk to him about because he's like the expert. We just had a real conversation about as human beings, like trying to learn this startup game and trying to do good in the world. So just one of the most impressive people I've met. We talk quite regularly now in the DMs, and I just learn a hell of a lot from Scott, and I'm really glad that he's like in the kind of alumni that we've built, because I can only imagine like the cool things that are going to happen in the future just from knowing people like that cool.
I have a confession. I've not listened to that one yet. That's on my list of things to listen to next. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Let me know when you do. I think you'll love it.
I will do. Okay. So, Jess Schultz.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that one.
So, like one of the things that I'm really proud of about our podcast is that we've got such a diverse mix of people. But if you listen to a lot of those names that we've just mentioned, they are men, right? So, and Jess is in this fractional startup world. She's positioned herself as like the seed to A expert. She's also Miami 305. But she's just absolutely amazing. Again, I saw a post that she'd wrote. We find some people like this, most people are free referrals, but some people I find the posts, and she'd written this post about like how startups can go and position themselves to go and find the dream talent. And she talked about ideal candidate profiles and like the founders doing a video. And I'm like, this is literally what I teach people. It's like, if you work with me, I teach you to do this stuff, but she's doing it too. And she'd written it much more clearly and much more beautifully than I could ever have dreamed, in like a wonderful list format. And she's built this amazing startup. She's also built a fractional community. She helps other people become fractionals. She does like Friday posts where she like introduces a new fractional to the market. So she's like promoting this business. And there's like the tiny little details that really impressed me about Jess. So when we're doing the podcast, right, the process normally, and again, like I'm not the most process driven person in the world. So probably the week before the podcast, I'll say, hey, it's your podcast next week. Could you send me some decent quality headshots? And a lot of people, and I would be the same, I think I was when I came onto your podcast, I was like, here's like 3 random pictures that might be okay. Jess went, here's my media pack. And it's like, it's a website with like, you know, her positioning in the market, like a bunch of very high quality pictures. Like someone that takes that type of care around something that most people just don't even think about, I think says everything about how incredible she is.
I think that I feel like all the women that we have on the podcast are just epic, like in just their own different ways, because traditionally sales is a very male dominated thing, and the women that we've had on our podcast are super successful. So for you to be successful in that, like you have to be an absolute badass, and they're just in such different ways. And Jess also overlaid sales with like venture capital, and it's just like, what? She's just amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Like coming from VC into the startup world through sales, epic.
Who is next? So we've got Ido.
Yeah. So this is amazing. So what's the hardest thing in the world to do right now in startups? Raise capital, right? Everyone talks about how hard it is. They've just raised token security, 20 million Series A funding. So we got Ido onto the podcast, like literally within like the month of them going and getting this funding. And he told us all about like his background. We can talk about that in a second. Becoming a leader, becoming a founder, raising seed, raising the whole founder journey. It's the most incredible thing in the world. Like Aligned raised 8 million and they're amazing business. Token raised 20. It's unbelievable. So that's going to be released very, very soon. What did you love about the conversation with Ido?
Do you know what? I think that I have quite a few Israeli friends. Something that always amazes me is that they go into the army for like multiple years. Again, one of those things that I just, it can't compute in my mind, that me at 18, 19, 20, 20, whatever age it is, I would go into an army and serve for years. And he stayed on past what he had to, built our career. Like, you're just a different human after that. Do you know what I mean? Like, can I make it through basic training? Yeah. I don't know. I actually don't know. Do you know what I mean? So anytime I meet someone who's gone through something like that, for me personally, I have so much respect for them, because you've done things that 90-something% of the world will never do, you know? And then to go from doing that and being really successful, because he was quite young and quite successful in that environment, then to come out and build like a crazily amazing company that does something that's quite technical, quite specific, it's just super impressive for me.
Yeah, I mean, he reached an incredible level within the military, like an amazing level. And then he decided, and when people listen to it, I think a lot of people resonate with it, that wasn't the life that he wanted, even though it would have been like a wonderful career that everyone in his family would have been like, what an amazing thing that you could have done with your life. But he's like, I want to take all of this and then go and build. And he just talks about so many of the principles around like what it means to be a founder and like hiring those first people, getting the right culture, like how much everyone has to rally around building something at that early stage with all the ambiguity and all the, like you see the 20 million raised and everyone's like, oh my God, that's amazing. Congratulations. But you don't know all of the stuff that happened before. I just genuinely think it's an absolute masterclass.
Yeah, it was a fascinating conversation. Absolutely fascinating conversation. Yeah. So the last one is, we mentioned Gal, but we didn't actually like go into like, what did you learn from the episode with Gal?
He's one of the most considered people. we asked him questions, and a few times he would ask us like to clarify the question because he really wants to answer it in the right way. Like if you ask me a question, I'll just start talking, and then halfway through I'll go, "What am I talking about?" So he's reached this level of like, what's the right word? It's like conscientious. He's just like he really thinks, really cares, very intentional. Like he talks about how he writes his posts. He does 3 posts a week rather than posting every day, which you're supposed to post every day. He spends like 4 hours writing a post. It just says everything about it, and then his posts go and hit, goodness knows how many hundreds of thousands of impressions, and he wins all this business off the back of it. Since they launched their Series A, they like tripled their like ARR, like ridiculous. So I think I just learned that you don't have to be like a big hype man. It's not all about like charisma, even though he has wonderful charisma, but there's just this credibility and trust. And I loved the podcast that we did with him. I really loved it, but I was like, and I could definitely have talked to him for another 2-3 hours because there's so much I'd love to know about him, his like mindset, how he approaches LinkedIn, why that's so important. But I think we got a masterclass in, and it challenged the assumption around what does it mean to be building a brand today. It's not about volume. It's about like the dark funnel. It's about capturing demand. It's not just about whack on a load of sales resource and then go and give them the job of going and building it. He's built this brand that people absolutely love. Like when Meredith joined, we said it on the podcast, but I was like, oh my God, she's joined Aligned. What a cool business. And I didn't realize that they're a 30-person business. So they're so early in their journey. I just signed up for Aligned and I'm starting to use it now. And it is as cool as everyone talks about. And he's got like #1 G2 reviews in the world, taking on the biggest competitors. Like to build a business that cool, that small, that's going to be that big. He talks about his 3-year goal being that it's 100 million ARR business. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to get there. What did you learn from Gal?
I think it goes back to what makes him tick. You said obsession.
With what makes the top 1%
tick. Yeah. It's that thing about obsession and in the right healthy way, like what that looks like and just how obsessed you have to be to actually be great at things is, that was something that really resonated with me. And then also what he talked about in terms of not going up market before you're ready and having that really honest conversation with, am I actually ready? What does that really look like? And I think that that's probably something that comes through quite a lot from his content and stuff like that, is that concept of like readiness. Do you know what I mean? And like, have you done all the right things to actually be ready? Do you understand what you need to be thinking about at that next level? Because most of us actually don't. Like, so when I went to America and I tried out for the college basketball team, that's when I realized like, I'm not going to the NBA. I'm not even good enough to be in a college basketball team. Do you know what I mean? But it was only when I was shown this is what is required of you. And I feel like that's what Gal does on a 3 times a week basis, is just show you like, this is what's required of you. Are you actually ready?
Yeah. Without ever like promoting the business, right?
Yeah.
Because if I look at his posts, I go, I love Aligned. What a great company. Like they must be massive. They might be massive. They're winning all these awards, la la la. His content does this well. But he doesn't like go, here's what it does. There's no features and benefits. It's like, we're like, and he talks about it. We want to like raise the category.
Yes.
Like we want to shine a light on this category.
Yeah.
So it's this whole like the rising tide lifts all boats. Whereas most startups, we've been taught for years, we are the best company in the world. We need to win. Like we need to beat our competition, or we don't even have competition. And it's like, he's not thinking that way. He's like, let's go and help everyone. And if we can help enough people, then like good things are going to go and happen.
Because someone I learned it somewhere, it was about, you can either grow the whole pie, right? So for example, companies like Apple, Nike, they grow the whole pie, right? So even if you still stay at 20% market share, the pie is bigger, so you get more. Some people say, okay, don't care about the rest of the pie. I'm just going to eat more and more and more and more. But that's such a limited way of thinking. But I think the way that Gal and the team are doing things, they're not only going to grow the pie, but they're also going to grow their share of the pie. And it's going to be like a unicorn. It's going to be amazing.
Because there's a lot of competition in that space. But I was like, well, I have to go and get a lot.
I didn't even know about that space until I heard about Gal. So it's like, they are absolutely growing the pie.
Yeah, there's lots. But he's just amazing. I think we need to get Gal back on to talk about some other topics, because he's just a phenomenal person, and I just can't wait to see what him and Meredith are going to build with Aligned over the next few years.
Agreed. Every now and then I just look at like the guests that we have and I'm just like, we just have epic people on our podcast. Like, yeah, just amazing people on a regular basis on our podcast.
That we are a very small podcast. Like, we don't have millions of subscribers. We don't have huge sponsors. It is like a passion project that we do. Why do you think we're able to get the caliber of people that we do?
It's a very interesting question. I don't know, actually. I think that some of it is that, like, firstly, like being available and consistent, right? Because we could have started and then got to like 5 episodes and then just quit. We have the back catalogue of like, we're not just here to like take the mic, like this is something we take seriously. And I think that people seem to like talking to us, which I'm always very humbled by, like always super humbled by the feedback that we get from doing the interviews. Like, that's amazing. And because of that, they recommend us to other people. And it's like, the whole thing is just super humbling. Like, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I think a couple of things. I think one is you.
Okay. You got to stay humble now.
So why did I ask you to join me in this podcast journey? It's because I went onto your podcast, and I just remember, even though we'd never met, having that conversation with you. I came out just going, it was like therapy, like one of your favorite quotes. But you really understood. You really took the time to understand me, and I was like, for someone to have that ability, because most people go into conversations and they're like, oh, here's what I want to tell people. You know, you see podcasts where the host talks for like 80% of the time, but you really make that guest feel important and valued. And I think that that's a massive part of it. I didn't know what on earth I was doing when we started this podcast journey. So I think you have just naturally leveled all of this up. And it's only really recently we started doing tandem podcasts. Obviously we've got the masterclass format, but now we do them together. I love it. So I'm learning. Like, I listened back to the Gal episode and I'm going, I love that episode. But I talked a bit more than I would want to talk, and you like really understood him and really took the time to ask questions. So I think a huge amount of it is that we're getting you on to tell you, like to talk at you. We want to learn from you. I think the other thing is we do care about the quality. So it would be very easy for us to not have quality host. It would be easy for us not to invest in a professional editor. It would be easy for us not to do the studio stuff. It would be easy for us to rush the production and shipping. So I think that what I hear is that when people go into other podcasts, they get like a message the day it's being released saying, oh, we're releasing it today. Here's the link. And I think that we collaborate with guests to make sure that they're going to be set up for success. The way that you do that first bit, and then once they've had the conversation with us, we do the whole path to launch process. We make sure the assets look really good. We put a lot of time and effort into the thumbnails, the clips. We give them like a marketing pack. So I think we're giving a load of value, and I think people just appreciate that. Because at the end of the day, remember, these are not often. I know we've got like some people like Gal and Scott, and they've been on many, many, many podcasts, and everyone wants to speak to them. But a lot of people, it's their first.
That's also what's crazy to me sometimes.
It's their first ever podcast, and they're entrepreneurs. They've been so busy building businesses that like they haven't had anyone like want to celebrate them in public. In their companies, they've got amazing reputations. Within their network, they've got amazing reputations, but they've never like had someone wanting to just learn about them without like it being like this whole sort of, you know, Trojan horse to try and get a load of business off them. So I think it's you. I think it's the production and care that we put into it, and the fact that we're not trying to get anything from people. We know that as a result of doing this, the network will grow, the relationships will grow. We plant enough seeds and do enough good things, good stuff will come back, but that's like the result. You can't optimize for that. So I think the final piece is we don't have a revenue dashboard. If this was a business that was looking at it and going, right, this is a marketing plan that we've got. This is a amount of money we're going to put into this. This is the ROI. We're being like squeezed on how many conversations did you have? What was your follow-up like? You know, did you do that thing? Have we got a pipeline? Have we got revenue from it? Where's the ROI? Because we never have that conversation. We go, how can we make the podcast better? How can we make the guest shine more? How can we do a better job? What can we do better? Like, we speak all the time about questions that we could have asked differently, or here's how we can improve the tick fire. I think because that's our focus, people see it. So we've did our Christmas special. We've done our sort of catch up now on the lessons that we've learned. What are you most excited about for the rest of 2025 for the pod?
That's a very interesting question. I think just to see like the conversations that we have. I think for me, like, it's all about the connections and the conversations. So yeah, it's just like, where do we go from here? That's just to see what happens. But it's just been a great ride so far.
Yeah.
You know, what about you?
Well, by the way, it has been a great ride. Thank you, brother. So we've already got like, we're 10 episodes ahead. So it's like, we know all this stuff about like the guests we've already had on, that we've like had to tell their story, and some masterclasses that we've done. So I think that I'm really excited about doing more with you. Like, just like really like becoming like high performance level, because obviously that's my mecca, right? And then it's the people that we're going to meet, the conversations that we're going to have. I really want to take it on tour. We're starting to now do some of the content stuff that we talked about. So turning the podcast long form into bite-sized versions of the brilliance. So yeah, exactly. So I can't wait to do that, because I think that all these guests are giving us like leadership enablement, like masterclasses. Let's help them turn that into assets and content that we can get out into the world. Because I would love it to be a place that people go, oh, you know, I'm taking a new leadership role. You have to check out What Makes You Tick. Here's a guide. And when we're having conversations, we can send them out, not just whole episodes. Like, here's the 1 hour and 40 minutes of Jacob. Here's Jacob's top 10 best questions, you know. Here's Gal's masterclass around how to go and hire the right caliber of people. So the more that we can do that, I think the more good we'll do in the world. And then Miami.
Let's do Miami.
Yeah, love it. Good man.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Peace.